Your name, please?
Ileana, Princess of Romania.
And your occupation and position?
My occupation is writing and lecturing.
Princess Ileana, do you feel that the communists are going to conquer this world?
I think they're going to have a good try at it, and it's up to us to stop them.
This is Viewpoint, an unrehearsed and personal interview with another distinguished and well-known personality who will reveal to you, the American public, what he holds to be the responsibilities of his occupation in American life, and brought to you as a public service by the Mutual Broadcasting System. Here is our moderator, the Reverend Dana F. Kennedy, radio and television officer for the Episcopal Church. Mr. Kennedy.
Welcome to Viewpoint, Princess Ileana. It's very good to have you with us. Now, I understand that your parents were the very noted King and Queen of Romania. And during World War I, what was it that they did?
Well, they gave Romania her age-long dream of unity and freedom.
And did they visit this country at that time, do I remember?
And my mother did. She visited in 1926.
And how long have you been in this country?
I have lived here from 1950 with my 6 children.
And you travel around the country?
I traveled around since 1951, lecturing in different parts of the United States.
Princess Ileana, do you find it hard to become acclimated here?
No, I don't. I've often been asked that, and I do not think it's hard. It is very different from anything that I knew before, and I think that one of the most important things for us refugees to understand is that what is past, put a line under it and start quite simply from the beginning.
What special characteristics do you find mark the United States as different from the rest of the world?
Well, it's its bigness, first of all, and the fact that there is no other country as large as this one that is in itself an entire continent. And that makes a very great difference. Also, the fact that there is one language over such an enormous space. The characteristic that I appreciate most of all in America is their sincere admiration of success and their desire to help the newcomer to succeed, and considering the newcomer's success as their own.
Using this word success, do you find that the United States in general has a certain feeling as to what makes success that may be different from, say, the European feeling of what makes success?
No, I shouldn't say there's a difference in that. I think that the Europeans have a wrong idea of what Americans consider success. I don't think that the Americans are really as materialistic as people like to think and as they show themselves to be. I think that people like you to make a good success of your life, if it's cooking or writing or lecturing or being a parent or whatever it is. They like you to see you do a good job. And I think that's what Americans admire more, actually, than material success.
What do you think are some of the main problems which the United States faces today?
I think that one of its greatest problems is fear. They're afraid of losing the things that they now have. And I don't think they have reason to be as afraid as they are if they would turn around and take hold of themselves seriously and think upon those principles which have gone to the founding of America and making her what she is.
Do you think that part of their fear can be based upon too little understanding of what could happen to them?
Partly it's because they don't really understand what can happen to them, and it is partly that they've grown soft and they want security, which certainly wasn't basically part of the American setup.
No, very true. What evidences do you see of this security?
Well, I think they always want to find a job which is secure. They want to buy the friendship of the outside world. They want to make it all nice and comfortable. They don't really like facing facts. They always try to make it nice. It's a lot of wishful thinking. They want to embrace the whole world. They'll embrace the devil himself in a general brotherhood, and then be rather surprised when the devil, well, turns out to be the devil. I mean, they take life as a game. Life is just isn't a game.
How true.
And if we learnt it in time, why we'd suffer a good deal less.
Now, turning to the world scene, Princess Ileana, I asked you the question, do you think the communists will overtake the world? And you said they should not, but we've got to work to see that they don't. Do you think there's a real difference between communism and democracy?
I think there's a world of difference between communism and democracy. They just don't go together.
Is the difference idea-wise, or is it just simply a matter of economics?
No, it's a great difference of principle. I've often been asked if I don't think that communism is simply a good idea wrongly applied. No, I don't. I think that communism is evil incarnate, and I hope for democracy that it is something better than that.
Now, you have had personal experience with the communists, haven't you?
Yes, I lived under the communists for 4 years, and therefore I really know their methods and their ideals. I've spoken to some of the leading communists in Romania, so I really know how they think.
What are some of the ideals which you feel are evil, which they hold, basic ideals?
Basically, they deny the existence of God. By denying the existence of God, they deny man's God-given right of free choice. For the communists, there's only one way of thinking, the communist way of thinking. The world is divided up only in two parts, communists and non-communists. And according to them, the non-communist has to die. They've told it to me quite plainly in my face. People like me just have no place in the world anymore because we stand in the way of what they think is progress.
Which is world domination by the communists?
Which is world domination by communists, a thoughtlessness guided by them alone.
Then in negotiations which our country has with the communists, by a matter of ideal, they never really give in on anything. Their essential desire to dominate is still there, you feel?
I don't think that there's any doubt about it at all. They've never kept any promise in the last 20 years, or more than that, in fact. And I don't think that you can really expect them to now suddenly keep their promises. Nor do I think that you can hope for yourselves to buy your freedom and your security at the expense of millions of other lives.
The communists, I take it, have absolutely no regard for an individual.
No, not for human life at all. It doesn't count.
Even for their own people?
Oh, none whatsoever.
Or even among their own leaders?
That I think we've seen quite often.
What do you think, if communism is to be conquered, we've got to do? You say we must work hard. Work hard doing what? I mean, you're just not fighting communism. What do you do?
No, I'm not for exactly. I always say that we should not be for fighting communism in that sense. I'm not so much for being against as being for. I think I'm always more for the positive than the negative. I think that if we lived our life correctly, if we were living examples of our own faith, if we did more and talked less, there would be very little danger in the communists. If we were as convinced as they were, if we had a creed, which we do have, but only we don't live by it, but if we lived by our creed, as the communists lived by theirs, there'd be no question that we would win.
Do you feel that in our country the churches are really helping people to find this strength of dedication, this strength of self-sacrifice?
I think they are beginning to become aware of it. I don't think they understand how great the danger is, and that it's a spiritual danger, and that it's a spiritual war to begin with, essentially. And I think that in our churches, generally, there's too much difference between the clergy and the lay people. By that, I don't mean that they don't meet each other and so on, but the lay people are not aware that they are just as much a part of the church as the clergy is.
Now, perhaps I assume too much in asking this question. I assume that there is perhaps no other place to find the dedication and the ideals except in the church. Is this right or wrong?
I think that you are right. The dedication is in the church and needs to be in the church.
But perhaps because of our self-sufficiency up to the present time, people have not realized the power which the church actually has?
Probably they haven't. I don't know. To me, the church has always been such an integral part of my life that I can't imagine the life without it. But I have seen so many who do live without the church.
And perhaps in this country, the reason I asked you the question whether you felt the church really does give the strength and the power is that so often the church can be simply an institution where people go for own personal satisfactions that don't give them this insight or these ideals.
But then it's hardly the church, is it?
Well, this is
I mean,
a
the
question which I
church,
would
when
ask
it isn't
you, I
like
think.
that, it doesn't belong anymore to the living body of Christ. And if it is the living body of Christ, the power is there.
You feel then that the strength of the church lies in the people themselves and what they believe.
In the unity of the people, both in the people and in their clergy. It's a question that the clergy is there. That's we have always understood it. The clergy are there to give us the sacraments. But the life of the church is just as dependent upon me as it is upon you.
And this is more important than let us say, atomic weapons in the long run.
It is more important in the long run, though as long as the others have them, I think we'd be fools not to have them too.
Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. But without the thing to fight for,
then there's no sense.
No sense. Was your experience when the communists came into your country that the church was a strength and a bulwark to...
Very much so. And really, I think our people have always lived very close to their church. The church and the country have really been always one. And today, I think they're more so than ever before. And I believe that our churches are acting in spite of not being sustained by the government and so on, that the churches are still more powerful than they ever were before.
Well, now, Princess Ileana, I know that in a very real sense you dedicate your life now to lecturing and writing about these things that we've been talking about, the ideal and the strength which will make not only America great, but which will make people great. What leads you to give yourself to this kind of work? What are the strengths and the motivations?
Well, I suppose that trying to find a solution to why we live at all, perhaps it comes down to that in the end. As I believe that man is created in God's image and made to live up to that image, as far as within power, our power to do so. Our ultimate reason for really existing is to worship God, and the only way you can worship God is to be as like Him as you can. And the only way of doing that is to serve your neighbor.
Thank you very much, Princess Ileana. It's been a great privilege to have you with us on Viewpoint.
It has been a pleasure and an honor for me to talk to you today.
This has been Viewpoint, an unrehearsed personal interview with another distinguished and well-known personality, produced as a public service for the Mutual Broadcasting System by the Division of Radio and Television of the Protestant Episcopal Church. Today's guest was Ileana, Princess of Romania. If you wish a copy of this interview, please drop a postcard with your name and address and the person interviewed to Viewpoint, 281 4th Avenue, New York 10, New York. Next week, the Reverend Dana Kennedy will have as his guest Mr. Lee Hastings Bristol, Jr., Director of Public Relations, Bristol-Myers Products Division. Be sure to join us then to receive still another Viewpoint. This is John Griggs speaking.